Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It's 6 o'clock. We're going to get started with the Board of Adjustments and Appeals. First, we're going to call this meeting to order officially now at 6 o'clock. All right, will you all please join us as we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Roll call, please.
Chairwoman Smith Rodriguez.
Here.
Vice Chairman Taylor.
Here.
Member Beckles. Here. Member Van Deven. Here. Member Wheelis.
Here.
All right, moving on to the approval of the March 1st, 2023 minutes. If the board has taken an opportunity to review that, do you all have any objections or edits? And if not, I will take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All in favor of approving the minutes? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Unanimously approved. All right. So let us move on to our notice requirement to those of you who are joining us today. All persons who anticipate speaking on any public hearing item must fill out an oath card to be heard on that agenda item, and you must sign the oath contained thereon. These cards are located at the table to the side entrance of our council chamber, and you can also get one from our recording secretary at the end there. This meeting will be conducted in accordance to the procedures adopted in Resolution 24-1997. Those speaking in favor of a request will be heard first, those opposed will be heard second, and those who wish to make public comment will speak on the item third. The applicant may make a brief rebuttal if necessary. A representative from either side, for or against, may cross-examine a witness. Anyone who speaks is considered a witness. If you have photographs, sketches, or documents that you desire for our board to consider, they must be submitted into evidence and will be retained by the city. And we'll submit those documents to our recording secretary at the end. So if you all are intending to speak for or against, or as a public item, be sure to fill out that oath card now before you get too comfortable in your seats. All right. To our staff, have our items been properly advertised?
Yes.
All right. And to our board members, have any of you visited any of the agenda items that we're discussing today, or speaking to any members of the public?
No.
I did ride by it on Capron. I did not stop and I did not speak to anybody.
Okay.
But I did do a visual.
One drive-by. All right. Everyone else said no. And I'm a no as well. All right. We have no consent agenda today, and we have no old business. So we'll move right into our new business. The first item is Variance 5-2023 at 803 Indian River Avenue. For our board, I think that's on page 7 of our PDF. So I'll turn it over to staff.
Okay.
Maybe page 9 is more helpful, actually, than page 7.
Excuse me, I should introduce our new planner who's going to present this item to you first before he starts.
That would be lovely.
Thank you. This is Joshua Mesnick. He's our new planner with the City of Titusville. He started with us probably about 8 months ago, so he's going to present these two items for you this evening.
All right, thank you. So this is Variance 5 of 2023 at 803 Indian River Avenue. The variance request was to allow an interior yard setback of 6 feet 2 inches in lieu of the required 10 feet for property in residential historic preservation zoning district located at 803 Indian River Avenue, Titusville, Florida. As submitted by Jerry No, applicant on behalf of Christopher Brooks, owner. The location of this property is 803 Indian River Avenue, Titusville, Florida, tax number 2200715. The future land use is medium density residential, and the zoning is residential historic preservation. And the surrounding zoning district is also residential historic preservation. The uses is a single family residence, and the property is approximately 0.45 acres located between Indian River Avenue and Indian River Lagoon. The lot currently does not meet the standards for the RHP zoning district. So, let's see. So the powers of the VAA shall follow the criteria of special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved and which are not applicable to other land, structures, or building in the same zoning. Special conditions and circumstances do not result from actions of the applicant. Granting the variance requested will not confer upon the applicant any special privilege that is denied by the ordinance to other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. The literal interpretation of the provisions of the ordinance would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district under the terms of the ordinance. The variance granted is the minimum variance that would make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. The granting of the variance will preserve the spirit of the ordinance and remain in harmony with its general purpose and intent. In granting the variance, the public safety and welfare must be assured. In no case shall the granting of a variance result in a change of use which would not be permitted in that zone. So, the analysis, the applicant is requesting a variance to the north interior side yard setback to bring the existing detached single-family residence into conformance with the residential historic preservation zoning district standards, and to construct a front porch consistent with the existing single-family residence. Approval of this variance will allow an encroachment of 3 feet and 10 inches into the required 10-foot minimum interior yard setback, resulting in an interior side yard setback of 6 feet and 2 inches. According to Brevard County property appraisers, the existing 2-story single-family resident was built in 1949. However, data from Titusville CRA historic property from January 27, 2012 lists the year of construction as 1905. The residence was constructed prior to the city's land development regulations and currently encroaches into the northern interior side yard setback by 3 feet and 10 inches. The minimum required interior side yard setback is 10 feet per section 28-310, residential historic preservation. The request to reduce the interior side yard setback appears to be the minimum necessary. The existing detached single-family home is non-conforming structure. A non-conforming structure may not be expanded, and a variance would be required in order for the existing structure to be made conforming per section 34-345, non-conforming structures, extensions, enlargement, or expansion. The subject property is approximately 0.45 acres, and the lot does not appear to have any abnormal characteristics. The proposed porch is located along the front or western elevation of the residence and connects to an existing porch along the southern elevation of the residence. The applicant states the porch will not encroach further into the interior side setback than the existing residence. And then in section 34-346 of the code states a single-family residential structure which is non-conforming and that said structure does not meet the necessary setback requirements. Setback requirements may be rebuilt or repaired in the same configuration as before damaged, even if the damage is in excess of 50% of the assessed value of the single-family residential structure. The structure may be rebuilt to the same configuration without a variance. Staff recommends approval of the variance. The request appears to be the minimum necessary that will make possible the reasonable use of the land and building. The granting of the variance will preserve the spirit of the ordinance and remain in harmony with its general purpose and intent. Granting the variance will not confer upon the applicant any special privilege that is denied by the ordinance to others. The structure may be rebuilt to its original configuration per section 34-346.
Thank you, Mr. Mesnick. Any questions of our board, from our board to staff?
To clarify, the principal structure and the pool deck line up on that 6 foot 2 inch side yard setback. Is that correct? And the infill of the deck would line up with those? Is that what we're looking at? If we look at,
Did you say the house and the pool deck or the front porch?
the house and the pool deck line up now on the 6 foot 2 inch setback, is that correct? Looking at the survey, that's what I gathered, but
Take a look at page 23 of your packet. And you'll see an area that's shaded dark. That is the addition the applicant's trying to get proposed here. So the pool deck is on the other side of the house. And it looks like the pool does meet the setback there. But where this addition is going is where the issue is.
Any other follow-up or questions?
no, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, I think we'll move on to our first speaking card.
Christopher Brooks.
Christopher Brooks, are you here? Hi. Would you like to speak?
I signed the card in case there are any questions on the homeowner. I'm the contractor.
Okay, Kim, do we have another card then?
Yes, the contractor, Jerry Kern.
All right, come on up. All right, please
Good
state your
evening.
name and your address first.
Jerry Nur, 885 Sandhurst Court, Titusville, Florida. So basically, the earliest records that the building department has is 1949. We've done some research, and through people in the community, the earliest we've been able to find is 1905 that the house was built. The front of the house has a 6 foot 2 setback. The rear of the house has, I think, a 7 foot 8 setback. So it's an odd shaped lot. It kind of tapers as it goes. It actually tapers wider in the front and lesser in the rear, but the house, the setback is greater in the rear than it is in the front. So it's a little, the way it's set on the property is a little, you know, it's kind of shifting as it goes back. If we were to move the porch in to meet setback, it would be right in front of an egress window. So you wouldn't be able to, you know, use that egress window in case of a fire or another emergency. Plus, it wouldn't look aesthetically pleasing not to have the porch run the full length of the front of the house. You know, the homeowners have gone through a great care to preserve the historical preservation of this residence. It means a lot to them to try to restore it. It used to have an existing porch where we're proposing to put it. It was enclosed prior to 95. I'm not sure exactly when. But you know, when we climbed under the house, look at the crawl space, you can definitely tell that it was a porch at one time and it was enclosed. And we've seen pictures from past owners of the residence that show the house with an existing front porch on it. So what we're asking is just to build back the porch that was originally there at one time. It will not encroach, the porch will not encroach the setback, the corner of the house to the property line. It will not further encroach, you know, the setback any more than the house is now. The porch, I think, is only going to be about 5 foot from the front of the house, and it'll have like a little cylindrical gazebo type feature on the end of it. I'm sure you guys can see that in your plans. I do know that similar variants have been granted in that neighborhood for similar types of uses. You know, it's when you're dealing with the historical district, we come across these things quite a lot where, you know, things are non-conforming pre-existing. And so this, you know, this is a challenge that has been navigated by many people. The variance we're requesting will not confer any special privileges that is not commonly enjoyed by other people. You know, most people that have, you know, the setback requirements go from usually the corner of your house. So, you know, in any other typical situation, you would be able to build a porch where we're asking to build a porch. And I think the porch will be, I think the porch and the entirety of the project is going to be a great improvement to the downtown district. Like I said, they're putting a lot of effort and care into just preserving the historical preservation of this residence.
Thank you, sir. Any questions to Mr. Nur from our board? No? All right, thank you.
Okay,
Please
thank
be
you.
seated. Any other cards, Ms. Kim?
Michael Coleman.
Michael Coleman? Good evening. Name and address first, please.
My name's Michael Coleman. My address is 1302 Riverside Drive. The home in question is in probably one of the oldest neighborhoods in Titusville. I would suspect a lot of homes built in the early 1900s. And if you go through the community, you see exceptions to the setback throughout the entire neighborhood. And I know their intentions is they're building a dream home, and with lots and lots of money already being spent. And I'm just wanted to reiterate that I was in favor of granting the request.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Any questions for Mr. Coleman from our board? No. Okay, next.
That's it.
That's it. All right. Bring it back to our board then. Essentially closing the public portion of the hearing. Does the board have any conversation amongst itself
Miss-
or questions of staff?
Chairwoman, we just have one correction we want to make.
Sure, yeah.
When I stated the lot characteristics, I stated the lot does not meet the minimum standards. The lot does meet the minimum standards for the RHP zoning district.
Thank you for that clarification. All right, board discussion or motion?
This is a common issue that comes around when zoning codes are applied to an existing historic neighborhood. It's hard to make something that's there fit the cookie cutter aspect of our zoning codes.
Any other discussion? If no discussion, I'll entertain a motion. You can find out details on page 9.
Madam Chairwoman, I'd like to make a motion. Make a motion to approve variance 5/2023, 803 Indian River Avenue, variance to section 28310 to allow a 6-foot 2-inch interior side yard setback. Special conditions citing the historic nature of the home built in 1905 and the zoning codes are ex post facto.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second it.
I have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Roll call, please.
Chairwoman Smith Rodriguez.
Yes?
Vice Chairman Taylor.
Yes.
Member Beckles.
Yes.
Member Van Deven.
Yes.
Member Wheelis.
Yes.
All right. Your variance is granted. You all are free to hang out. You're also free to head out. Your choice. All right. We are going to move on to, all right, looking at page, I'm looking at page 30 now. We're going to move on to variance number 6-2023, a property located at 4411 Capron Road. Mr. Mesnick?
Okay. So this for variance number 6, 2023 at 4411 Capron Road. Brad is passing out emails from one of the neighboring properties. The variance request was for Land Development Regulations 32-13 to allow a building-mounted dynamic or variable message sign for property in the light industrial services and warehousing zoning district. Estimated by Colleen Hearn, applicant on behalf of the property owner, Titusville Post, VFW 4228 US Inc. The location for this variance is 4411 Capron Road, Titusville, tax ID 2213134. The future land use designation is a commercial high intensity, and the current zoning is light industrial services and warehousing M1. The surrounding zoning districts include light industrial services and warehousing, Indian River City neighborhood commercial, and single-family high density. The lot characteristics, the lot is approximately 1.79 acres with approximately 400 plus linear frontage on Capron Road. And the current use is a private club and fraternal organization. Staff analysis, the applicant is requesting a variance to section 32-13 for dynamic A1B1, dynamic or variable message sign regulations to allow a wall-mounted electric message center sign. The applicant states that they are unable to comply with requirements because they believe the site lacks the space to accommodate a monument sign. The current use of the building on the property is a private club or fraternal organization, specifically the Veterans of Foreign Wars. The parcel is approximately 1.79 acres in size and is currently built with a principal structure and several accessory structures. All of the structures on the site are single-story. Neighboring uses include mini warehouse to the north and south, the FEC Railway to the east, and single-family residential homes to the west. Section 32-13 A1B of the code states building mounted dynamic or variable message signs are prohibited. The applicant states that the requested building mounted sign is required due to insufficient area on the site for a freestanding sign. They have approximately 437 feet of frontage on Capron Road and appears to have sufficient area to accommodate a 10-foot tall ground sign located 10 feet from the property line. The majority of the structures on the site appear to be clustered in the northeast corner. Furthermore, section 32-13A5A of the code states dynamic or variable message signs shall not be allowed at, on, or visible to the public from any dwelling or home occupation in a residential zoning or residential use. A dynamic or variable message sign, variable message wall sign parallel to the right-of-way and directly facing the neighboring residential homes would not be permitted. Staff recommends denial of the request to allow a building-mounted dynamic or variable message sign. The requested signage is not currently permitted and would confer upon the applicant a special privilege that is denied by the ordinance to other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. The size of the property does not appear to cause a hardship that would prevent the use of other types of permitted signage, such as ground or monument signs.
Thank you.
Can you repeat that last part? I didn't hear about the ground sign.
Mr. Metzger, if you want to state your last sentence.
The size of the property does not appear to cause a hardship that would prevent the use of other types of permitted signage, such as ground or monument signs.
Thank you.
Sure. We just want to refer to a couple of exhibits.
Yeah.
Yep. So on page 36 of the packet, you can see a survey of their land showing possible space available for a monument sign. And then page 39 shows multiple street views in the front of their along Capron Road. And yeah.
48, page 48.
Page 48.
Page 48 illustrates the aerial.
Yeah.
You can see the actual development on the property.
So if, I want to make sure I'm understanding correctly, by the code, then it would not be permitted at all to have an electronic message center sign on this particular property because of residential across the street and the prohibition on the wall. Is that what I'm understanding?
Is that right?
On page 51 of your packet, you'll see the code sections that we've included for your reference. 32-13A 1B, building mounted signs. Building mounted dynamic or variable message signs are prohibited. So if you want to do a dynamic sign, it has to be on a ground sign, and the only type of ground sign you can do it is on a monument sign. That's per the code today.
Maybe I misunderstood. I thought it was also stated that it cannot be seen from any home or residential zoned dwellings. Did I miss that?
Correct, I believe.
That's what he just said.
On the same page, page 51 of your packet, at the bottom, you'll see under paragraph 5, zoning and use.
Okay.
Paragraph A, dynamic or variable message signs shall not be allowed at, on, or visible to the public from any dwelling or home occupation in a residential zoning or residential use.
So for this particular property, a variable digital electronic sign would not be permitted?
In this zoning district, you can have a dynamic or variable sign, but it would have to be on a monument sign. How it's angled and oriented,
Okay.
this section here would
Okay.
regulate that.
I got you now. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff?
Yes. My understanding is they can only have one ground sign on the property per development. That's a general sign rule. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, that is
There's
correct.
an existing pole sign on the property,
Yes,
according to the photos. So that would have to be removed or altered? Is that,
yes, that would have to be removed or altered to allow new adjustments to the sign.
To permit a dynamic variable sign, yes.
Any other questions to staff?
I just have one question. I need just a little bit of clarification. If they did have, put that lighted sign up, that, it's a variable sign, and it wasn't facing the residential area, would that be allowed if the pole sign came down?
So when you look at all the regulations of the code, it says you can have a dynamic variable sign, but it has to be on a monument sign. And so that, and the height of that sign can only be 10 feet tall.
Okay.
Then you look at the other regulations about where that can be located on the property. So if they want to use a pole sign, they can't have a dynamic variable sign message board on it.
Right.
But if they want to have a monument sign, they are permitted to have a dynamic variable message sign on it. On the wall, it's prohibited.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for staff? All right, seeing none, our first card, please.
Mark Frank?
Mark Frank. Welcome. Name and address, please.
Yeah, it's Mark Frank, 1703 Crossville Drive, Titusville. And I'm here on behalf of the VFW suing for the variance. And I have a couple questions. One is, they do have a sign right now in their parking lot, okay? Now, are we able to move that over to there without any variance?
So if we are taking questions and answers, I'm gonna turn to staff, and
Okay.
I don't know if we need to take a break or a recess, if you all wanna take a few minutes before you have a full hearing.
If it meets the criteria for a sign, we'll review a permit application.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, and the other question is we want to get the variance if we can for it to be on the wall. And we also had concessions where we would turn the program off at 10 at night and turn it back on at 6 a.m. in the morning. And apparently the one that opposed it is 184 feet away, and even the light at that point does not reach them. So I'm wondering why we have that here in Titusville. Why do we have it where you can't attach a multicolor changing sign to a wall? Curious about that one too. I've been trying to get this passed for many years in this town.
So, Mr. Frank, for starters, this is the Board of Adjustments and Appeals.
Okay.
So we have our code that we are bound to follow unless
Mm-hmm.
there's special criteria. We are not the ones who wrote the code. We are not the ones with any authority to change the code. We are authorized within certain criteria to allow that variance if it's appropriate. Should you all present your case and we find that the criteria is within those permitted, then we can grant the variance. We would not be able to limit when you turn it on or off. We would not able to negotiate with you on that, and we're not going to represent any homeowners or consider that in our particular process today.
Okay.
Okay, so if you want to go forward, you are welcome to request your variance and tell us how you meet the criteria.
Okay.
If you want to table it, you can consider that. If you need a minute to collect your thoughts, that's fine too.
Okay, we are asking for a variance for the reason that if we do move the sign to where it isn't parking, you have everything that goes in the way of that, even in the driveway. So this is why we have a sign on the wall now, and we were wanting to update it, change it for people who are in the club that can read messages daily, because they do, I'm sure, dinners, they have services, they have times where they have people that they give medals to or are happy with. So we're just wondering to put forth that we'd like to see if we can get the variance.
I guess don't go anywhere. Let's start with questions. Any questions, Mr. Frank? So, Mr. Frank, as you heard staff say, there is a hard prohibition against wall signs of that nature.
Okay.
Do you want to submit any argument to us regarding how that sign should be permitted, even though there's a hard no in the code, by way of explaining which criteria perhaps it meets?
Okay. So the hard code is it can't be attached to the wall. Is that correct? Okay. So
Yes.
if we mounted it on poles in that area, is that within the criteria?
On a monument sign, you can do it. On a pole sign, you cannot.
Okay, we'll mount it on poles and cover that to make it a monument sign. So then if that case, would that meet the criteria?
We would certainly entertain looking at a building permit to
Okay.
make sure it meets all the code requirements.
So that kind of tells me what I need to do at this point then.
To clarify, the monument sign has a very specific definition, and it regards the actual structure being something other than the poles covered in a metal covering. So it's actually
Yeah.
essentially going to be a concrete base with, some decorative stonework, that type of stuff, stucco, whatever.
Right. Now, we actually did one in Cape Canaveral for a pawn shop up there, so we did do a concrete base and made it a monument sign. So that gives me direction now that what I need to talk to our client about, because if it's not able to be attached to the wall, then we need to find another resource for it.
Right. So I'm listening as I'm processing, because on the one hand, it sounds like you are almost considering withdrawing the variance request, proceeding in a different route and getting that reviewed. Alternatively, we can decide right now, yes or no to your variance, or we could, if you choose to table it to another meeting to give you time to run your other options, that's fine too. What are you thinking about doing?
I think that we should go ahead and proceed with the variance
Okay.
hearing today, and then if it's not granted, then we'll have to go different avenues at that
Okay.
point.
All right, just making
Okay.
sure you had all your options.
Yes, thank
Okay,
you very much.
Don't go any
Oh, okay.
questions for Mr. Frank? No. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Kim?
Constance Ashworth?
Constance Ashland? Ashworth. Welcome, Ms. Ashworth. If you would please state your name and address.
Constance Ashworth, 4470 Capron Road. And do I have 3 minutes?
Yes. Are you for or against this variance?
I am in opposition.
You are in opposition. Okay.
Yes.
You may proceed.
My home is across the street from the VFW, and I am in opposition to approval of the variance to allow a large lighted sign on the side of the building facing the residential side of the street. The conditions of, some of this is redundant because you, Ms. Rodriguez, and planning has already said how it doesn't meet that there's a special circumstance, but I'm going to read what I prepared anyhow, okay? Per the City of Titusville Land Development Regulations, a variance can only be approved if it meets certain criteria. Number 1, per 34-226, the VFW property appears to be of a standard shape and size to other properties in the M1 district. The property is even developed in a form to others on Capron Road. The 2 storage facilities on Capron Road are also single-story buildings located at similar distances from the road. As such, there are no discernible special conditions or circumstances that would require relief via the variance process. 2, per section 34226A4, the literal interpretation of the provisions of that ordinance do not deprive the applicant of any rights commonly enjoyed by other properties. If the sign type or some characteristic of the proposed sign is not permitted to all developments in the same district, then no particular hardship is created here. 3, with these conditions established, it is clear that the approval of this variance would provide the applicant a special privilege that is denied by the ordinance to other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. The approval of such a variance would directly violate 34-226A3 of Titusville's Land Development Regulations. I'm opposed to approving this variance. The VFW already has a lighted sign on a pole, as was discussed, and they have another big ground sign type that they put out displaying information about things like bingo and breakfast. It's a lovely sign. I just don't want a lighted sign flashing the information at me, you know, and that would impact the feel of the home dramatically. Additionally, this neighborhood with the tall pines is blessed with seasonal visits by great horned owls, and the height of the sign being proposed. Owls don't like light, and I think why we haven't seen rats in our neighborhood could perhaps be by the fact that we are blessed by visits seasonally by great horned owls, and they hoot at night and serenade us to sleep. And I would hate for approving this variance to make that would cause us to lose that amenity in the neighborhood because, you know, the height of the light. And so please don't risk taking that away and changing that, because as again, they already have a large ground sign of a type displaying their events and activities besides the lighted pole that says VFW that they have in the parking lot. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ashworth. Any questions to Ms. Ashworth? No? Thank you, ma'am. You may be seated. Ms. Kim?
That's all.
That is all. Okay. Mr. Frank, did you want to offer a rebuttal?
Yes, I did, if I don't mind.
You are happy to. Go ahead.
Okay, I don't know if you have this in your package or not, but I'd like to cycle it through y'all. If I could. This is the opposing opposition where she actually lives, which is not anywhere near. It's 184 feet away from where the sign would be. So the light would not bother the owl, or it would not bother her address. The people right across the street did not oppose it at all. So we took a census and they were like, no, that's fine. They kind of thought it's upgrading, it's updating. Most everywhere in Titusville had that. We kind of went through this years ago with Titusville about the message centers. So, you know, we're just trying to update everything and keep things information flowing a little easier for people. That's what we do with the sign business. You know, if you look, Titus Landing, there's a reader board there. There's other around too that have adjacent homes and things like that too. So we're just trying to stay up with the times is kind of what we're wanting to do.
All right, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
I wanted to ask a
Oh,
question.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
How many feet away from the residential home did you say the variable message or sign would be?
On her case, it's 184 feet away.
Okay.
Okay, because it's a large property. Now, on the other case where you have one that did not, they didn't oppose it, they didn't come in, we're within 100 feet then.
Okay.
So the light disbursement still, it does dim out. And also at night, it's not going to be on anyway. So there won't be any light at night.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, Ms. Kim, any more cards?
Michael Seeley,
Mr. Seeley? Good evening. Name and address, please.
Michael Seeley, 4460 Capron Road, Titusville. And I'm against this sign now that I'm getting information on what they would like to do. I'm the neighbor directly across the road from the building, and I feel like I was misrepresented by the previous speaker as to having had conversations with and agreeing with this situation. I came here for information, and the request seems to be an imposition, and I would state in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seeley. Any questions, Mr. Seeley?
So were you the residence that is 100 feet away from where they proposed the sign would be?
I'm directly across the road in the center of the block, across from the driveway.
Do you know how many feet that is from, do you know how many feet that is from the VFW?
Only that it's directly across the road.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right, Ms. Kim, anything else?
no, ma'am.
No. Okay. Mr. Frank should still have the last word for rebuttal, so sir, if you feel compelled to come back, otherwise, we have listened carefully to your previous comments.
Beg your pardon?
You don't have to speak. You have the right to have the rebuttal.
I understand that. So there again, like to keep up with the times. I would like to ask the board to grant our variance. And we'll also stay within the public's need too. So that's up to you guys now, and let's see what we can do. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. That'll close the public hearing portion of our meeting today. So I'll bring it back to the board for any discussion, comments, or motion.
Madam Chairman, I move that we deny variance number 6-2023 at 4411 Capron Road, and the reason being it is just not allowed by code.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Council, motion is sufficient?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Thank you. All right, I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion amongst the board? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Member Beckles, Yes. Member Van Deven,
Yes,
Member Wheelis,
Yes.
Chairwoman Smith Rodriguez,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Taylor.
Yes.
All right, so that means the variance is denied. It sounds like you all have a couple other options and some other things that you can think about, so I encourage y'all to communicate with staff for the future. You all are free to go. I think we have a couple more things to attend to. Thank you. Okay, so that concludes the 2 orders of new business that we had, which moves us to the next section of our agenda, petitions and requests from the public present. Mr. Johnson is present. Did he fill out a card?
Yes, ma'am, he did.
All right, sir. Name and address, please.
Stan Johnston, professional engineer and former employee of the city of Titusville, 860 Poinsettia Avenue in Titusville. And I'm here because I'm having a problem that's not being addressed. I did call Glenn Tolson about this issue. I said it's going to be a violation of code if it's built, and he says he cannot act upon it until it's built. So this is something that has been approved by the city of Titusville, and I have repeatedly contacted the city. I'm getting nowhere. I believe it was either the DRC or this committee that I spoke to about it regarding the technical manual for a driveway apron. And in this case, the meeting I went to is that there was a driveway apron that violated the technical manual and that it was approved by the committee. So I don't remember if that was you guys or the DRC. So here's what I drew it today. This is drawing from the scale drawing from the plans for SNJ Oaks. And so what they have proposed, this is the property line, this is the right-of-way line, this is a 12-foot driveway within a 12-foot easement up against the property line. So what it does, the flare, which is scales to this being about 2 feet, is beyond the property line, which is in violation of the technical manual. It's supposed to be even beyond, this is supposed to be some distance away from there. So I cannot get anyone from the city to, let's say, obey this technical manual. So I'm having a problem with it. I'm letting you know because it may come before you when it's built after the case and then come for a variance. So I'm coming to you, let's say, proactively. So you may have some comments about who will talk to me, even though they say they will not talk to me, as far as in the city or whatever it is, because I'm just, I don't know what to do. It seems absolutely ridiculous. So you can see that this, in this case, it violates the code, property line, 2 foot beyond property line. It's supposed to be some distance within the property line. So I come to you with this problem, and maybe someone could say something, is that someone is supposed to be able to talk about this.
Welcome, Mr. Johnson. I appreciate your concern as always. As you know, this board has a very limited focus.
Yes.
And we have a very limited jurisdiction.
And this
But you
is-
are right. Should this matter come before us and there is a variance that is requested, we will certainly address it, and we would love to hear more from you on that matter at that time. That's when we can actually do something. But
Pardon?
until then, that's when we can do something. Until
Okay.
then, we
Nobody knows.
We can't help. So I
Nobody knows, even
but
Richard.
thank you for your presentation.
There you go. It seems like somebody would know. Somebody even here would know, or even the city attorney would know. So really, it's kind of ridiculous to go to, see, I'd send emails out and so forth. No one would respond. They won't talk to me. And so it's a problem. This is a
understand.
big problem.
I understand.
So it's kind of ridiculous. So no thank you to city attorney and no thank you to you guys. Okay?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Johnston. Appreciate your comments. Ms. Kim, anyone else? Any other cards?
No, ma'am.
All right. Which moves us to our next agenda item, any reports?
You have applications to consider at your next meeting as well.
Okay. We look forward to it. Anything else from anybody else? No?
Just the date on next meeting, May, is it the 24th? Is that correct?
That's correct.
May 24th.
Okay. Just making sure I'm in town.
Okay.
I'm
All
here.
right.
I'm good.
If there's nothing else from anybody else, we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
All right.